So how I originally also called the presentation was the shape your product and team's appetite. And there's the reason why it's called the appetite. And if you already like have experience with the ShapeUp, then you know also why. But we will get there in a few seconds. I'm currently head of product, but there is also a little bit behind that how I get to the head of product. So I get to that. But first of all, I would probably should tell you a little bit about the Storyblok, that you can connect the dots and maybe compare it to the company that you are currently leading or you are like working with, and who we are. So Storyblok is basically a content management system. We are the headless system, which means we are not only like providing data through the API, but we are like modern headless system where we are like thinking also how you can create the component similar as you would do in the modern frameworks. Same, you can create basically the components that are nested in the components, and with this, it's like never-ending chain of components. It's very flexible, and basically the content it's the content on the first place, and this is how the Storyblok get to the point that we are awarded few G2 prizes. Of course, we are part of the Maha Alliance. We have a huge customers, and currently already like across the globe, with 200,000 users, a lot of enterprise clients, etc., etc., etc. However, what is really interesting is how we get there. And this is like interesting story because right now we are around 250 employees. This changed like almost every week, a little bit, but we got there in the last 4 years. Basically, in the December 1st, 2020, very close before the COVID, I was joining the company as the first real employee. And before that, there was like just 2 founders who got the seats. And then in the 4.5 years, we got to 250 people. That means like we got a new people, a lot of new people, and it's not only those 250, but some people already left us, some new people join us. So it's a rapid growth. This means also a lot of new teams that before that wasn't team, more specialized teams. And this also means like very hard transition sometimes about the ownership of the business values and also all the challenges on the product side, of course. With all the stuff that's going on, we had also a lot of possibilities and opportunities which direction goes. But with the rapid growth, it's really hard sometimes to get the vision right. It was, I would say, like clouded in some moments, and we get to the point where we needed to kind of rethink like how to do the development, how to do the prioritization again, and the better way. And that's when we came with the ShapeUp. And I will get slowly to that stories. But most importantly, also, I should mention that we raised just a few weeks ago, we announced the 80 million Series C. So we kind of a celebrate, but it's also much more responsibility now to also grow even more, get more senior people, more people with really good skill sets and the right people, and think about how to bring the product much more faster to the our customers. So this is like where we are as a company. So get very quickly from 2 to 250 employees. And also I should mention that our product team is around 80 people. Always like depends how you count them, but I mean with this like from product management to developers to designers, Q&A, the product leadership. So it's around like 80 people right now. Why you should listen maybe to me very quickly. That's my background and what I'm telling you and how I get to these opinions maybe. So basically, 14 years of experience working with various technology roles. Right now, as a software analyst, basically front-end developer, lead developer to head of solutions, or you can call it developer relations, and even to basically the product, which I get basically there last 1.5 years ago when we realized like we really need somebody who will lead the vision of the product. And in Storyblok, it was always about 2 founders who were like leading the product, but the CEO was focused more, of course, on the CEO responsibilities, and our CTO, who's the also founder, is more focused on the technical one. And I, as a person who spent basically the last 3 years talking that time to all the customers, to doing all the demos, like basically speaking the community, had like tons of ideas. So how to run the product. And I was like also a little bit unhappy about like how we are developing, how we are prioritization. However, there's like few slides about that, where we've been and why we get there. So I don't want to spoil it. And then, of course, I'm getting like circle done. I studied basically a little bit this on the university. So I have some backgrounds in the university in software engineering, master degree about like how to write the analysis, business process modeling notes, diagrams, and all this stuff, and very kind of boring stuff that is very helpful to me as a now in product management. And of course, I basically experienced the whole scaling company from really like 4 or 2 people to 250. So I saw when we were like small how we worked and how we had to spread all the responsibilities to other people, how was the teams creating, how we created the silos, how we break the silos, and all over again. Anyway, so what we are talking about today is the ShapeUp. As you already heard, some of you probably heard about it. And for those who don't heard about the ShapeUp, very quick recap, what is that? So the ShapeUp is basically a development process methodology created by Ryan Sanger from the 37 Signals. They are behind a Basecamp and a bunch of other products, quite successful usually, and also the book Rework, if you know. Basically, the ShapeUp is, in a nutshell, it's about like delivering meaningful products in a with the deadline, and it's a similar. It's one of the next steps or new popping up. The methodologies are getting much more attention after the period of Kanban, Scrum, and now is the ShapeUp. The one thing, if I would always highlight about like what is the difference between the, so let's say Scrum or Kanban and the ShapeUp, is the thinking of how you define the product or the features and how you choose them, because we are here talking about estimate versus appetite instead of estimating. So what does that mean in reality? So in reality, I can recommend read the book. By the way, it's free. But in this, all you need to understand, if you really want to have the only idea, is that in a ShapeUp, we are not thinking about how we can estimate this feature. So let's say we want to build a feature X or a new history, and then we sit together with the developers in the Scrum. We do this basically a poker session where we'll also like say like how much points it should get. Then we try to cut it to the tickets and get to final estimate like 5 weeks, 10 weeks, 2 months. In a ShapeUp, we are thinking about the appetite. And yeah, question. Basically, we are talking here about the appetite. So instead of like building, as you see here, from questionable to the like whole feature, we are thinking like what we can do in 5 weeks. So we really like define the appetite, define the resources we can spend with that appetite, and then try to deliver something meaningful in that time. So in the case of the book, it's 6 + 2. So they do 6 weeks and then 2 weeks of cooldown, which I will be also covering later. And it's really nicely explained in the ShapeUp book. It's quite easy to read. It's not long. It's coming very, very to the point with nice samples. And basically, you can read it in a weekend. If you are a slow reader like me. If you're a fast reader, then you can go even faster, and probably you need a few hours, like 3 to 4 hours. So, however, where we've been as a Storyblok and how we get to the changing this data. So basically in the year of beginning of 2023, so that's almost 1.5 years ago, we ended up the situation that after 3 years, we've built this version 2 of Storyblok. We had built a team of around 80 developers. We had 5 teams, and those teams work in the silos because we were switching to version 2 of Storyblok. Basically, we are migrating from Vue.js 1 to Vue.js 3. We built the teams that were responsible for different parts of our application or product, and they were rebuilding that. However, the process has a few backdoors. One of the backdoors is that we rapidly grow. We have young managers, we have young teams, and basically we have not super experienced teams, but also they are in silos. Every team works a little bit different, and they have their own things, how they do the stuff. Nobody is at the end of the day responsible for the maintenance, because everybody is responsible for the maintenance. The teams trying to work in the 3-week Scrum, where 3 weeks is a very short time, and some teams deliver very nicely. Some teams had a little bit problems to deliver, but at the end of the day, nobody owns really the business in those teams. So we had like their POs who were originally leading those teams. Then we created managers who are leading those teams, but still all those teams work in silos without the proper communication to each other. And in more controlled environment than the creative one, because we were switching from V1 to V2, and it was very clear like we need to basically rebuild a new UI for all the features, and didn't create it so much opportunity for creating a new innovative stuff. And that went to the situation that we are suddenly done with all of this, and now we have a teams in silos who don't know how to own the business or what is the business value for the customers, which works in the 3-week Scrum sprint, and trying to fix every bug, but also don't responsible because they're throwing this hot potato between the teams that, hey, this is your bug because your team is responsible for that silo. It's a little hard. And then at the end of the day, as they also didn't have a priorities because they worked on the ticket instead of really focusing of the business value, we have very often the situation that some feature was estimated, and then it took like even half year to finish because there was always something reprioritizing, something smaller happening, and people never get like really the focus time, or they didn't get to the zone to finish it. And that's where we get me also what I don't like maybe about the Scrum so much. And I'm not saying that Scrum is per se wrong or something. I think the Scrum works very well in many companies. Companies, of course, it can work properly. And this is the situation where we've been in, and it's get to us. That's basically, in my opinion, the Scrum we didn't do properly Scrum, and I have one problem with it, and that's called the burnout. Because the burnout is create a false expectation that you have this amount of work. It's very clearly defined what needs to be done, and then you just go down. And I kind of had the situation that basically our developer teams, everybody was happy because the burn down chart looks cool. They mostly hit like the 0 or somewhere in around the 0, let's say, but our customer was like asking like, where's the feature that I asked half year ago? Where's the feature that you promised me? And this is because like we were working on many tickets, and our POs also were micromanaging kind of the teams, but the tickets were not connected to each other. So this is like really like in one sprint we work on 5 features, and then it gets bigger and bigger and bigger, and finally at a few weeks you find out like you finish a lot of kind of work, but you don't get really like the something that is really usable and meaningful to the customers. And the product teams and the head of product was like still waiting, and we were like, okay, delayed, it's again delayed, and it's get postponed, and where is the stuff that I promised to the customer a few weeks ago? So we think about like how to change it, and this was a long discussion. It took the process took much longer. Maybe it depends like who you will ask. If you would ask some of our developers, probably, then they will tell you it was very fast, and we did it like in basically 1.5 months. But in reality, I had this discussion about how we work in the product division in basically already in 2022. As I switched to the head of product, I had already like few discussion about the head of design, about how each team works, how they plan the features, because I try to understand how we are prioritizing, how we are creating our pipeline, our roadmap, and all of that stuff. And we did a lot with first year in improvement, basically in product management by changing, but we didn't change really the Scrum and all that stuff around. But we are already discussing like we should be more flexible, we should focus more on the projects, what matter, we should deliver quickly, we should focus also on fixing the bugs. And we don't understand why, if we would like to create this cool feature and it's touching like 2 different parts of the Storyblok, we need to or suddenly like coordinate 2 teams. These teams get, of course, the delayed because the communication is hard, etc., etc., etc. And then we just after a long discussion, there is the windows of opportunities. And in my opinion, we had this deep window of opportunity created basically around the October started, when the new 2 C people levels joined our company. So we have like the new chief of staff who also joined and helped a lot of more on the product division side. And we kind of have like this whole new energy in the company, like let's improve, etc. So we started to discuss like more about like how we can improve the delivery times, how we can be more predictable, how we can also give more freedom and more creativity to the developers, because they had ideas, but they needed to be free of that, how to give them the autonomy. And basically, after all the discussions about like how we should specify, how we should design, how we then should develop together, and that we shouldn't go to the micromanagement where we literally like define every single ticket and and give it to exactly that person who will finish it. Get to the point that we find out that all we are discussing is basically in ShapeUp. It's very similar. Maybe they are using different names, but the idea is there. It's very project based, and it's very straightforward, and basically really give the ownership back to the development teams. So we decided like, let's do that. Let's try to give it a shot. And we did it around the Christmas, when usually the teams and everybody get a cool down. And yes, usually around the Christmas, many people take vacations. We are maybe also lucky that we have there like a lot of developers in Brazil. So there's like not so many people maybe taking the vacation still. It is more the time where we have still some people who works. The European people may be having more free time, but still usually what we do is the bug bash. So we are like doing a lot of fixing of bugs, but instead of only that, we decided like, let's do also the experiment. And the experiment was to compare the ShapeUp versus the Focussed Scrum. So the Focussed Scrum, as we call it, is basically here on the right side. And here we just took the existing team that were exactly focusing on building everything about the sign up and trials and payments. Then we started to we give them like the ticket. I need to look. So we did this Christmas test where we have the Focussed Scrum, exactly took the existing team. They were able to do all the stuff that you do in the Scrum. Even the VP of engineering was working with them, so helping them to set up, do all the meetings properly. They have tickets defined ahead of time. They have very clearly defined like what we are going to do, and they have basically design prepared. They got 2 sprints, or in our case, 2 times 3 weeks to work on that. Similar for the ShapeUp, we created the experiment where we took the totally new feature, so something innovative, experimental that we wanted to like bring to the product. We call it ideation room. So basically, it's like Google Docs inside your content management system, where you can like collaborate and then move the stuff around to your content. Anyway, we build a new team. Basically, we literally like pick people from different teams that we would like to have this. We thought like their best for this experiment. And these people wasn't now the most senior people or something. So we're really a mixture of the people. And we told them like, hey, you have an autonomy. You have a freedom of organization, how you need to do organize. We will give you the goal. We will give you the specification. We recommend you to do 1 stand-up a week and have a dedicated channel. If you have any problem, like here, please, in the channel, always discuss in channel, that everybody see that. And please ask me, I'm your consultant. I'm not going to tell you like who of you what should you do. You are the team, and please organize together. That's also, don't think about the team as like it's like 20 people. It's like in that case, it was like 2 front-end developers, 1 back-end developer, or 1 front-end developer, 1 full-stack developer, 1 back-end developer, and there was 1 Q&A in that time, plus design team and me as a product owner. And then we also set in the specification, or how they call it in the ShapeUp in the pitch, that hey, there's a must on the ideation room. So this is the collaboration feature, and that is also visible to compare with or whatever. And they are like nice to have features, and you can also define this appetite. So you have a 6 weeks. Here you see basically the whole pitch. Here you see also our designs, and how much do you think you are able to deliver? And I was surprised because they put on their shoulders more than I expected. So it was really, really interesting from the team behavior. Anyway, so we have a 6 weeks, and basically what we ended up is like after 6 weeks we had the internal beta, and also the Focussed Scrum. It was result was improved because we got what we expected to get, but and you have to also keep in mind, both of those teams working only on the features, they were not doing the bug fixing or anything that, because we had like all the other developers and the rest of the product division basically was doing that time the bug fixing and not starting the new features. So what was interesting is it's really nicely shown on the hill chart here. The uphill chart or hill chart. You can find both of them in the Google. And this is really what I like much more than the bottom, because in the experiment, the first 2 weeks, I was like, oh shit, we are not doing well, and most probably we will have an issue. There's like a disaster coming. It looked like really like not a lot of development happened. It was really looking quite bad. And after the second weekly or second stand-up, I was like not really to show something like from the dev team. So they spent like literally like almost like 9 days of work, and still we didn't saw anything. But then it's get really like this moment, this flip point where they got to the top of the hill chart or hill, where they identify all the uncertainty, unknowns, problems. So we were like using the tip tap, where they like really like get the solution, what the developers of the tip taps, how we will find this, how we will do this. They really nicely define like what they want to do, and even brought a few new ideas in the middle of those development cycle, like, hey, we are doing this, but it will be cool also do this. It's not so huge amount of work. Can we do that? And we're like, yes, okay, add it there as a nice to have. You don't need to have it, but if you finish it, we will be taking that in consideration. And then suddenly, basically from the top, which was in the middle of those 6 weeks, they went down very quickly and ended up by creating a really nice internal beta. So if you look on the beta, we had suddenly the whole new feature that was integrated in the Storyblok, and we could give it to our internal teams to test it. We could also present it to ambassadors, to our customers, etc. The results in the Focussed Scrum was also a little bit better than we expected. So there was an improvement. But at the end, if you compare that, I'm still leaning towards the ShapeUp in this experiment, because the Focussed Scrum was really something that was the team that worked for together for almost 2 years, even maybe some team members more or longer. And they have all the stuff and all the processes that they used to be working with. And then still they achieve the same quality of the result as the ShapeUp in the random team that we pick up together, and give them like totally freedom. So I was like, okay, there's something of the ShapeUp, and probably with a little bit of polishing, we can get it really, really good results. So then we, of course, started, let's put some principles together, and let's put some rules together, and let's do the full-fledged experiment and do the proper cycle with all the developers, all the designers, all the product owners, basically whole product division. So before showing our rules, I would like to mention the ShapeUp principles that are really worthy to keep in mind always. And that's basically like number one for me is like ship something meaningful at the end of the cycle, and something the customer really see value in, so something they really use. Whatever big feature you usually build, if it's not really something revolutionary, you usually can build a smaller part of it that already bring a lot of feature and a lot of value to the customer, even if there is not everything. Or maybe you will cover 80% of the customers. Again, depend on the feature very often, but most cases this works. Then in general, we will work in cycles, so we have a deadline. With Scrum, you are doing the ticketing and you have a burn downs, but you don't really have a deadlines for your features. And the ShapeUp, you know that there is this 6 weeks, 5 weeks, or 7 weeks, and on that day, in the 5 weeks, I should have something that is I will present our demo to somebody, and we want to go in production with it. So it's really like something like you still can have you can go sleep with a kind of okay sleep, but you already know that there is a deadline waiting for you. Then please shape up your work. So in the ShapeUp book, they talking a lot about how to write a pitch. And in the pitch, define the key or must-have elements of the feature idea. So we define like, okay, this is the idea or the feature we want to build. And this feature doesn't make sense without this part. But then there's like maybe 10 other parts that are like nice to have. And I would pick some of them, but maybe the team thinks differently, because some they see better the code and they know like, hey, like these 3 will be very easy to deliver, so let's focus on those instead of this nice to have that could take us like 2 weeks to build. Then focus on the appetite, which I basically explained. So let the team also own the development and let them to really like look on that. And the initial kickoff meeting, which we do like for 2 hours for this like feature, and I will also cover that a little bit in next slide. Let them pick, because by that, as they choose some stuff and dedicate it and say like they will deliver it, they also taking the active ownership and the accountability for that stuff. course, integrate with design and the programming. That's also very nicely coming from the ShapeUp principles. So get the team closer together, and the design is always open. And as a programmers coding, the great programmers can also design and also like change it as is going during the cycle. And the last thing, the designs and specs doesn't need to be bulletproof. And that's, I don't try to tell you like you shouldn't write nicely or good or whatever. But if you think that yours are bulletproof, it's not true. There's like no specification on the word probably, or at least in the SaaS industry, most probably some. If we are building maybe going to the space or something like that, there should be bulletproof, but I guess like there are never like really without the mistakes and the parts that were not foreseen. And then when developers read them, they can like really suggest like better ways to solve the problems. So we don't try to really create a bulletproof stuff, but something with open scope that can be still adjusted by also the product teams basically as they do it. From those principles, we came with our initial development setup, and that's always work on shaped ideas. So I know there is a huge request from some customer who would like to have this cool idea that we have a 5 sentences about, but you know, like it's still, we need to think about that. We need to think how to will be working in the design. We still should shape it and get it properly, like evaluate if it's really that value there. And if it's from that 5 sentences, it is what the customer really expected or expects, and not just we deliver in 5 weeks something and then it's something else. Rotate team members, even if you don't go for the ShapeUp, like rotate team members, I think this is like really helpful. By the way, they do that in the school in with my son even, that the kids are rotating in the class because the kids sit together with other people, so they can exchange different knowledge. They have different approaches, and that also works with the product teams. If they works always with the same people, they create sometimes, yes, very good relations, but these relations can have a big draws. Like they too much cover each other, and they cannot like leave the bubble and learn more stuff. So by rotating people and the team members, we can set up like better teams, and we can see like that this person maybe didn't work very well in this setup, but with the different team, it works very well, or doesn't work great so on that project. So rotating team members is, in my opinion, very, very important, and that was something that I personally wanted to achieve a lot. Do the kickoff meetings, and kickoff meetings, don't hesitate to put like 2 hours on them because the development team and the team who is like building that feature should understand what they are building and why they are building. If they understand it and own it, and have accountability for it, they really build it better than just getting a ticket and don't understand why I'm doing this. It doesn't make sense. But okay, I get it on ticket. Let's do that. No, if they understand, they can come, and the best people will come in even with better ideas that you didn't expect it or you didn't came with. We set up the 5 development weeks. So we had 5 weeks of development, 1 cooldown week. I will show in graph in a second. Then we are assigning the projects, not the tickets. That's basically the whole idea about. We recommend to have a weekly stand-ups and mid-cycle product leadership sync. So basically, our mid-cycle demo. So basically, in this week number 3, every team or ShapeUp team, which usually we had like around 5, will go to the presentation where we'll show up the CTO, maybe some people from marketing, and they show up like, hey, what we built in the last 3 weeks and how it's going, where we are in the hill chart, and are we confident that we are finishing in the time. Let's the team build the accountability and ownership with how what I already like talk about a lot. And then at the end of the cycle or after the cycle, review every cycle. So we are reviewing literally the projects, like, hey, you build this project, is it a success? How, and then look on the people and get the feedback about the people. How much contribution was this person? And this is not about the lines of code, but really like how active was the person, bring new ideas. This was like raising the problems ahead of time. Because one problem we had in our setup, in our culture, was like there was many people seeing the problems but didn't raise them. And that was like this change to ShapeUp was also the opportunity for them to switch to switch their mindset and said like, okay, we will show you we are better. And then lastly, we created a dedicated maintenance team with a bug coordinator. So basically that teams who are working on the projects in ShapeUp setup, they don't need to take care of the maintenance. There is literally a team of few developers and the Q&A who are working on the bugs. So how does it look like? And I hope you see now the slide with the developers and POs. So we basically over our cycle now, we have a developers and product owners look, but there is like, of course, still a design team, etc. But I think this is enough to understand the point. So our initial setup was that the developers would have like at the beginning the kickoff week, where we have this big kickoff meeting. They read the documentation, looks into the design, ask a lot of questions, and usually not a lot of development start. Then the second week is where usually start the development a lot. And then in the third week, we had, again, only development, and they present the mid-cycle. Also, naturally, there's usually one of the devs took the leader of the team, kind of, but it's not like it's appointed. It's literally like depends on the team. Some teams doesn't had like really like the leader, but they were like more sharing the responsibility. In the mid-cycle demo, if we saw something goes very well, we can lower the scope, we can adjust, we can help them to say like, okay, we see you are like too stressed up. Let's take out something from the scope that you can finish in the time. And then, of course, it's continued development. Originally, the idea was like in the number 5 week, we will do the demo and deployment. So it's final demo for the product leadership, which is CTO, VP of engineering, a bunch of heads. And we brought there, like usually, somebody from marketing who will be the campaign about that, maybe some salespeople, etc., etc. And then should happen the development, and then they have a cooldown week, which cooldown weeks basically meant for like learning new stuff, fixing stuff, bringing new CSS, so anything like you need to do on the code base, etc., etc. The maintenance would work the all 6 weeks, basically on maintenance and bugs, just to be clear. From the product management, however, it looks a little bit different. So the POs switch from mindset of like micromanaging and the teams to the mindset like, okay, we are a week ahead of the kind of ShapeUp team or the developers, and we need to prepare everything to be ready to be developed. So they have also like part of the kickoffs because they do the consulting more, I call it. And then, however, then in the first week, also the product leadership is doing the planning workshop where we plan what to shape. I will cover that in the next slide. Then we have the POs do the shaping and consulting, where also in that week, we usually like review the teams and the projects. And then they will do basically the shaping, consulting, and at the end, it's like demo and shaping. And the last week is where they don't do a lot of shaping, because we are focusing now on those few ideas or features that we selected in the betting table for next development cycle. So we are finishing, polishing them if there needs to be some changes. However, ahead of time, a little bit spoilers. This is something that we also adjusted in general, like the whole view here. So I will show you what we did, what adjustment we did after the 2 cycles, because we were like a little bit too optimistic with the setup here. Anyway, this also changed a little bit life cycle of the idea and the feature request. I will not go too much in detail to this. If you want, I can give you like more ideas. This is more about the product management. But basically, if we have a new feature request or idea, then it goes to ideation first, where we have a backlog right now around 400 to 500 new ideas that we kind of evaluating, and then we are getting them through different stages. But then here happening the planning workshop, then we are like each idea gets shaped. So like we create the pitch or specification designs, then it goes to the betting table, where if we on the bet on it, then we know we are going to develop it. So then we can announce it on our product roadmap on our public website, and then it then basically also gets to development, and after that goes to release. I don't know if this is readable to you, but basically here you can see how would it look like in the discovery board of Jira, which is like the product from Atlassian for product management. Basically, every idea goes through like arrived, iterate, experiment. It is very, very crazy idea, but usually it's go arrived, candidate, go to shaping, where it's get rotating. I'm reading, giving a feedback to the POs. Hey, yeah, Then in the shape, get the feedback. If there's a lot of designs needed, sometimes go to the design phase, and then we are shaped. Everything what is shaped is ready to be bet on. So we don't send everything to betting table. It depends on the focus and what we see and hearing from the customers and all the Storyblok divisions. But right now, this would be ready to development. Then if it's selected, it's like current bet, and then goes to development, and it still can go back as improvement needed, or it goes to staging and into production, hopefully. Anyway, so what is the planning workshop? So first we have a planning workshop where we took a lot of ideas, and of course we have a lot of little labels. We know which key customers coming, etc., etc. But this session is basically for the product leadership, where we define and select what next candidate should the product owner shape. And with shaping, we really mean they need to write a proper specification, which I will show you in a second, and then also work with the designer to create the designs for it. So we can really predict and give the developers in the moment of developing almost done design that can be still adjusted, and also the scope of the specification is possible to adjust, but we know what we are building. So we have the final goal and we have the vision. So this is basically the workshop for the product leadership. We're defining the direction for the few next months. We don't plan like the roadmap or what will be delivered in the next quarter. We are creating basically the pipeline, what we could develop. And then basically me and the POs, the PLG team, data team, we are gathering feedback from different Storyblok organization or divisions, like sales. And according all the inputs, we kind of create as a preparation, like what are the top candidates, what are the nominees, what are basically the fields without the value. And then those top candidates is usually like what we select for shaping. And then every product owner has up to 5 ideas to shape in one cycle. And then we have a goal for the whole year. We have a goal basically for the plugins and different type of ideas. After the planning workshop, the very important meeting where product leadership meetings is the betting table. So this is the session where the product leadership basically decide what we are going to develop. So here, again, let's get all the candidates or all the shaped ideas. And we keep in mind, like, okay, was it already candidate before? How big is it? Is the spec here approved and final? What is the status of the design? Then we, of course, have all the information about what ARR is in the risk, what is it promised to any customer. And that's why also we have here the customer success lead, that he can bring also his opinion. Because in reality, usually from this, we can select like 4 to 5 big batches, from which we are working right now on accessibility. That is like long topic that we'll be keeping for multiple cycles as. Then we usually do some plugins. So in reality, we have like 3 bigger features that we can build in a 5 weeks or 6 week cycle. So here we bet on the next projects and define the teams. Also with the product VP of engineering, with the head of product engineering, they together like selecting the teams who are the best and telling us like if we still have resources for more, or we should focus more on the maintenance. Here also the idea is that as we already know what is the shape, we still getting the insights and is trying to reprioritize this board according to data from PLG, product-led growth, data team, POs, and all the context that we get. Our shaped idea looks like this. So we have it, a lot of labels, a lot of information is directly in Jira or in the discovery board, but directly right now we are using the Google Docs because of all the commenting and easy way to basically collaborate. And here you can see like basically the shaped idea or our pitch is basically a feature that with open scope. Here we define what is the problem on opportunity, who is the target person, and how what is the business functionality, or what is the functionality description. And the functionality description, it doesn't mean how it will be coded, so which field should be edited, or what are exactly the conditions, but each define more abstract way that the designers still can do their design work. So we are like talking about like, hey, there will be a a button or action that will open something, and there we will see this. And then the design team do the designs to it, and the dev team still give feedback. So it's very clear. So it's very important that it's very clear the purpose. The design basically after in the case of shaped ideas mostly done. That means like it's really ready to be presented to developers or also to marketing or the sales teams if they want to show it to the customers, like what we are planning to do. There will be always possible to do adjustment, and that's why we have an open scope. So this approach of like highly beneficial if the teams explore some creativity. So the teams and developers can still a little bit there like, hey, that doesn't make sense because in the case of the team plan we don't offer this, and then this condition or this functionality would never occur. Good. Then the team structure. This is the slide that I added here because I guess like this will be very interesting also for everybody how could look like a ShapeUp team. So the good thing about this is like we got from the silos where we had the 5 teams, and these 5 teams, they had like 3 front-end developers, 1 to 2 backend developers, dedicated Q&A, and dedicated basically PO, to the smaller teams where we have now per feature, ideally like sometimes you have even 1 front-end developer if it's like easy feature. Like for example, when we did the accessibility buttons, we just needed 1 front-end developer and our accessibility expert. So, but in reality, if you go for like the normal size, big batches features, then it will be like 2 front-end developers or 1 front-end developer, 1 full stack, and 1 backend developer in case like you need to do a lot of backends, of course. Then you have a Q&A team who helps where needed. So sometimes the people are dedicated, or usually they are responsible for different features, but it's not like they are needed all the time there. So that's why I keep them here alone on the slide. And the product management team also, it's not part of the team in a sense of like being whole time with them, because they are consulting them. So they are owner of the business value of that feature and how it should work and what should be the final result, but they are not, again, micromanaging them. So that's why I keep them here as also standalone. And then same goes basically about the design team, because also the POs and the designers usually like are participating on multiple projects. But the team here, the front end and back end, they are always on the one project. So they are not shared between the other projects, and ideally can focus the whole 5 weeks or whole cycle only on that one feature. There is a good question about like, what if the feature is too small and it's not for 5 weeks? That's exactly where we have a small and tiny features. So you can also create like multiple, like for one team, like a list of like 3 features or group them together. And this is like the whole topic on this is in the ShapeUp book. The one thing also you could in theory do is like give them small thing that they will finish in 3 weeks and then move them to the maintenance team, and they will work the rest of the cycle in maintenance. Depends on the setup and what is the priority, of course. So as I mentioned, we did some adjustments. What is the time? Okay. So in the adjustment, we did like 4 or 3, 1 important adjustment, and in general it was like 4. So first of all, like we make it longer. So we did 2 cooldown weeks instead of 1 cooldown week. So we went from the 6 weeks to 7 weeks. In the book, they recommend 6+2, so 6 development or weeks and 2 cooldowns. And I would say like the 2 cooldowns make sense, because in reality, what happens to us is that during the cooldown week, we got still delayed, and we then do a lot of like deployment in the cooldown. So this way, we did it the different way, that we create the 2 cooldown weeks, and here we move out also the kickoff meeting outside of the first week. So basically at the end of the cooldown here, this kickoff is basically this kickoff, and the teams do the kickoff before they start the cycle. So they already starting the cycle and can really work on the development. Because what happened here is, like, if you have a kickoff meeting in the first week, sometimes you don't need find the slots. Some people are in Brazil, some people are maybe even far west or like east. Find a working solution for everybody is really hard, and then you have like 2-3 days sometimes where people kind of don't work on anything and wait for maybe do maintenance, but not really working in the cycle. So then still we do the planning workshop in the first cycle. We do the mid-cycle demo, still the reviews works. We move the betting table to sooner. So we know ahead of time what we will be working. So kind of a 2 weeks ahead of time, we already know what we want to work on the next cycle. And the reason for that is like, if we do it here, like we can then a little bit adjust till or reshape the ideas that we selected. We can then at the end of the demo week, we can also already know the teams, so we can share which teams, how they will look like, and which they are working on. And then during the school down week, they can read the specification, they can work, they can have an easy time to really understand, then have a kickoff meetings where they can ask me or the other POs like really meaningful questions and go to the development. So I believe I have 3 more slides: benefits, disadvantages, and one hint or feelings. So basically, as I talk a lot about this. The benefits I mentioned: developers own the features, teams autonomy, sharing knowledge, nowhere to hide. So the people of the underperformance, it's really hard to hide if you don't code or like spending your time differently as you should, because you are rotating the people. You will see the people will also are more exposed. They need to present, and if the team fail at the end of the cycle, it's failing a whole team as a whole team, and then we will find out like there is somebody and it's repeating. If you move to the next cycle again, you are there, and then it's really hard to say. So some people left us, I guess, also because of this, that it is maybe a little bit more stressful, but I think it was needed. The teams, for example, our best people, they get more focus in zone, so they don't disturb by all the requests from the support, feedback fixing, etc. They can really like focus on the quality of the code. That helps the dedicated maintenance team that really now protect basically the rest of the teams who are working on the features. Also, the POs spending more time on shaping and really defining the specification, don't doing the micromanagement of the teams, focusing on the business value instead of like really like, are we going down to the burn down? Should I define the next ticket for anybody, etc., etc. We are now much predictable, constantly delivering, and we have a better prioritization in the whole product, because we now prioritize on the whole product instead of like in those 5 silos, where a lot of high priority tickets or like a request end up in one silo. Now, if we want to build a lot of AI, for example, features, then we can spread it from to multiple teams, because we can do that. We don't have those silos. It's better predictable in the short term. So I can tell you like exactly now what we are working on and what will be released in 5 weeks. It's also a flexibility in long term. So we are not overpromising, because I don't have a super long roadmap where I can tell you like in a Q3 of the 2024, we will deliver this. That could be also a disadvantage. Disconnect me here, because that's one of my disadvantages. Like you or some people will tell you like we have a very wide long-term roadmap where we are not saying like what will be in long term. So we have more like a vision which direction we want to go. But I think this is a sign of maturity of the product, that you don't overpromise. However, your team need to be higher level of seniority, which we feel, and we try to get more senior people. We feel in some a little bit intensive, so some individuals get a little bit stressed up, but this is getting better with the time of more cycles. The team's members needs to be open-minded, because we are like really having a constantly feedback, expecting from them to us, and they are getting feedback. Also, the culture needs to be open, so teams member needs to speak up if something goes wrong ahead of time, and this is something that we really value. If you know that we will not able be delivering this in the 5 weeks or next 3 weeks, please tell us. Don't hide it. And and of course, not everyone likes the freedom and autonomy. So yeah, that's a very personal. So from my feeling, we are in the middle of the third cycle. For if I include the experiment, we fully switched basically 4 months ago. And initially, we experienced fear and hesitation from team, but this improved in the last cycle a lot. The best performance, I would say, already love the approach, and they can really excel, and they can feel they bring more value to whole product. The underperformers, as I said, didn't like it, and some of them already left, or some will like a little bit scale up their game. And the more teams are switching to ShapeUp. So it's not only the product or the development, but now we are like switching also the data team and DX team. And the last thing from my side, create feedback culture, please. This is like really, really, really important for the whole ShapeUp. So if the feedbacks is not appreciated and expected, then you will have a really hard times, because in the ShapeUp, it's about the seniority and really like having a feedback, and teams in those cycle, they need to get feedback to each other, like, hey, this code wasn't good, we need to do it differently, etc., etc. I'm now speeding up, so this is my last question. I have a links, one more slide where you can see the links to the video, the book, and a really nice notes. But if you have any questions, now I will go through the questions. You can also ask questions on the microphone, I guess. And if you have a questions, you will just ask me on the LinkedIn. You can also like join. Give me a question.
Yes. How do you deal with fixing bugs in features that you shipped in the previous cycle? So you have a team, it's shipped a new feature, right? Sometimes things have to mature a bit in production as well. How do you allocate time for doing that while not slipping in the next cycle?
Yeah, that's a good one. So in reality, we have these. So we try to always like. It didn't happen to us like in the maintenance team. Wasn't anybody who didn't do that previous like big feature. So if, for example, we now launch the big history, which is potentially there's a lot of problems, and in reality, like a few of those front-end developers just went to the maintenance team, because I don't know if I mentioned it, the maintenance it's not the same people all the time, but it's also rotating. So it's basically the front developers that previous cycles worked on some feature, they go to the maintenance, and we are like basically always like having a different maintenance team. And of course, if this is like so new feature and they don't know anything about us, they can reach out to the focus team, the ShapeUp team, or the developer who worked on that. But ideally, they do that only in the critical situation when it's really needed. Michael, you're welcome. Good. Anybody else question? Otherwise, I will go to the Q&A. So I will order it with most popular. So on the top there is a Daniel, and from Daniel is, how do you hand over between these phases? Example, what documents designs are given in the implementation? I think I touched it a little bit. So we have this specification. We have a designs in the Figma that you hand over. The problem is that we are now improving is the documentation. So we are including also the marketing and the documentation team in the regular stand-ups, and they are also the part of the end demo. Also, we are thinking a little bit about creating the pre-production development, pre-production environment, where the documentation team could work on the documentation and get some time ahead of time, get some time before it gets to production. But in reality, we will let from the product management, so the POs, notify our documentation team like, hey, there is a new feature coming, and then they are also the part of the channel, Slack channel, where we are developing this feature, so they can get also access to the environments where the feature is already available. They can ask questions to the developers, etc., etc. That's the Daniel. So an answer it. Is there any hands up? No, it's like people leaving. So good. Philip, dedicated maintenance team, but you are still rotating members of that team. Is that voluntary basis? Do you rotate everyone at once? Yes, I just answered a little bit. I forgot to mention that in presentation. I had it in notes. Anyway, yes, we are rotating also the maintenance team. The only people who stay there is the bug coordinator, who knows like his or the bugs there. So when the new team comes, they do the kickoff and they can continue working on the bugs that are maybe not finished. In reality, a lot of the bugs are front-end bugs, back-end bugs. So it's not so complex that really needs to know that little part of the story block. And that's extreme situation. If it's so, then yes, we reach out to CTO, or maybe we reach out to that super experienced backend developer who will help us. But yes, we are rotating. It's not voluntary basis. We try to get different people there. But after the first 2 cycles, we have a people who show up the willingness to being more often in the maintenance team because they like it. Also, what we did is that we moved one product owner that is also responsible for the maintenance team together with the bug coordinator because of the time zones problem we have. And additionally to that, it's a lot of requests coming to the bug coordinator, who is more technical manager, kind of, who helps to coordinate the fixing, and then the PO can help do the decisions, like business decisions. Good. How do you discuss appetite with the team? You mentioned nice to have, so it's basically just a prioritization list. Yes, this is a, a question that you just need to find out on the call. So basically, I'm listening on the call. I show what we want to build. They understood basically the scope, the business reasons, and why we do that. And they see like, okay, this is the must. So let's say if you do as we did the history, then I said like the must is that we show all the history in a proper way, which we wasn't showing. But nice to have is also to show the comparison view, which is like compare two different versions to each other. And then I have my own preferences, but first I'll let the team to discuss what they want to build from those nice to haves. And if I have a feeling that it's not enough, then I will challenge them like, hey, I think like you should go for more. Or if they're selecting too much, then I'm like again challenging back like, hey, I think like this is too much. Don't you think like we should skip or like cross one thing out in the case that and be more focused on the on what's matter. So it depends. Really change from the team to team and the setup. How do you split discovery, definition, and implementation? Who joins which part? How many people are involved in each of these? So how we split the discovery, definition, and implementation is so we are building now a much better discovery process where we are like building a little bit more focused PLG team with the data team, so they can provide more insights before we go to definitions. So right now the discovery is a lot on my shoulders as head of product, with the inputs that I'm getting around, and a little bit the stuff that I'm also getting from the data team. However, the definition is on the POs, and they usually like write it without the help of developers. In the case they feel like they should consult something with the developers, then they can go to CTO, in theory, in VP of engineering, or like one of the more experienced developers who can give them opinion on that. However, we don't do like super hard checks if this is possible, because we go from it that we are defining the business, what we want to do, and not how it's done. And then we look with the team in that first week how to do it. So it's like part of the cycle to find out how to do it. In theory, there could be cases in the future that somebody tells like this is not possible to solve, or there's no way to do it in 5 weeks. But if there's a reasonable argument for that, then we are happy to accept it and say like, yes, good work anyways. How do you handle stakeholders willing to have specific features because they know the market, better than the product team? More specifically, what kind of commitment do you do? Oh yeah, there's always a customers who want something, and this depends basically on the product leadership on this meeting, or during the planning, and also during the betting. We discuss all the inputs, so we know like which customer wants what, and according to that we behave. So if it's a huge customer, there is a huge risk of losing customer maybe who is like really huge, then we are willing to go for it, but we try to always do it the way that also other customers will benefit from it. This is of course something that we have a threshold, a price, and if you over that price, then we are like more willing to listen basically. The next question is, with such a small ShapeUp team, did you not find productivity issues with the illness or holiday of team members? Yeah, that's a good question. Of course, the vacation, usually ahead of time. So on other side, the 5 development weeks. It's a long time. So if somebody's sick, it's usually not more than for 1 week. If there's a situation, if somebody's seriously sick for more than 1 week, then of course we can adjust to that. So in theory, like we could move somebody from maintenance, or we can decide like, okay, we lower the scope again and all that stuff. So we That's normal, also happening with Scrum and other methodologies. So you need to basically adjust to that situation. I would say that this is not problems so far. Are you doing framing? It's not explicitly mentioned in your life cycle. If not, why not? Framing, I think you meaning like this very like sketching, Klaus. I'm not sure now. I don't remember exactly how it was mentioned in the book. So we are doing basically the way which we a little bit skipped in the ShapeUp, or we did it differently, is that in the ShapeUp, the designer is a part of the team, one member of the team. So it's not literally the designer is not working on multiple projects, but it's working only on that one project. However, it's also like a little bit different how is the base camp or 37 signal setup, because they have very senior teams and a lot of designers are also the front-end developers, I believe. And that's the reason why they can also do more like the designer is part of the finding the solution during the cycle. So they don't basically write the specification and design before, they do it during the cycle. So they have a pitch, they have a problem, and they as a whole team finding the solution. However, right now we don't have enough high seniority level in our development team, and also together in the whole development product division to do that. So that's why we decided more like go like we prepare this ahead of time, and then we can like adjust it, because our developers from the past are very driven by the designs, and they very tend to go to Figma and do what they see instead of reading what we wrote them. So now we get to the point that they really better reading what we wrote them, because they understand there is a business value, and then also they can shape it. And then of course design is changing, but we don't, that's the reason why we basically don't the framing. All the framing happens in between the product owner and the designer sometimes. For example, I do it very often with the product head of design, but on other side the guy is so good designer that he can literally like design as I'm talking, and I'm talking pretty fast, I think, and he really like still are able to put the stuff what I am talking about on the screen. Good, Philip. Does accountability stop at building and delivering? How about running, adoption, discoverability, and security? Whew. That's many questions. So we were solving the one problem after one, and now I'm not sure about the running. What does it mean? But the adoption, discoverability, and security, like we have, of course, the security is something which we're dealing with. That's dealt on the whole setup. So usually now we are also dealing with accessibility. So we try to teach the people that they should do also accessible stuff always. However, the adoption and discoverability is more like done by the other teams. So we move then this feature like, hey, the other teams like marketing are taking care of that. So you are accountable to the point of delivering. And then, of course, if we say like it was good, then you get the review. So in a way, you are not necessarily accountable anymore for that. We will not go a half year later and tell you like, oh, you did it very wrong. On the other side, it still can be that maybe in the future we will be more looking into the code with Git blame and telling people like, hey, you could do this better, how you can do it better, etc. But not doing right now. Thomas, in the 6 weeks, did you do deployments, example, with feature flags, or did you have long-lived feature branches? Oh yeah, so the maintenance team still doing like small improvements or bug fixing. So those always go to the deployment. Also, if we do the small batches, so for example, if we had a team which was working on 3 small features, or like adjustments, let's say, that takes 1 up to 2 weeks. Those are not waiting till end of the cycle. We just deliver as soon as possible. So we try to change that, because in the Scrum we did a 3-week cycle and always do the same 3 weeks deployment. And then the deployment was really stacked because we didn't have enough power, and setup and pipeline was like complicated, and basically it get always delayed. So now it's suddenly even better because we can better predict, we can prepare, and we have like basically a kind of 1.5 week for deployment, because we still use a little bit the cool down week for deployment. And then in the case of which we have now, the new history application, or like where you can see the past version of your story, this is something that we are also having a very long branch. We run it through the 2 cycles because there's a lot of features, and that's a good sample of how it shouldn't be done in my opinion. But that's maybe when I answer all the questions. So yes, you can run it, you can hide the features behind the flags, and we also now do the public beta, we did a private beta, so still possible, all of that. With the backlog 400 to 500 issues, how do you slice it to big enough chunks to fill 6-week iteration? So please don't call it issues. Those are ideas from the customers. So those are not the bugs. Those are literally like a request or ideas from me and many other divisions in Storyblok. And we really go through them. So again, like we have 400 to 500 in total, but then we are closing some, and those which really matter usually get loud enough. So we see who is asking, we fill in the stuff, we see like which are the key customers, key partners, and then those get to the candidate state. In the candidate step, I will give them the top candidate. I will try to connect some ARR to it, or new ARR, or like say like this is the innovation or experimentation, or for example now we have focus of course on the AI, as many companies have. So if there's like very interesting AI request that is even been already discussed with some customer, then it gets more prominent place, and then that's get basically top of the pipeline. And I'm not planning to finish all of those. So those are there, and we are going through them right now and try to close it. Some of them, of course. So what is the sweet spot for ShapeUp? In which case, team size, maturity, would you not recommend ShapeUp? Oh, okay. So first of all, it's like you need to realize it's like 4 months for me with the ShapeUp still. So I am not fully, I would not take my recommendation here like super serious, I would say. Because there's still a lot to learn. I think we are a company of 250 people, 80 product team, and in my opinion, we are a good spot for it. If we would go for a big organization, like really enterprise, 1,000 or maybe even like few hundred developers, it's really hard maybe to find that setup of developers or product team that is so self-driven that you can do the ShapeUp. So I would still say, and maybe argue, that a properly set up Scrum for the bigger organization is still valid option and still good solution, or maybe even Kanban, on even maybe a waterfall for some of them. So absolutely not saying that ShapeUp is the best for everyone, but in this case, and in the moment of us, we want to be very flexible, very creative. We want to rapidly grow, and we want to react to the market. I think the ShapeUp is really, or we are in the sweet spot for the ShapeUp, in my opinion. How it will be in 2-3 years when we are maybe double-sized company, a number of the employees, I cannot predict right now. And the last question from Philip, how would you handle a huge rewrite project like your 2.0 rewrite with ShapeUp? I'm not sure what you mean, the huge rewrite of the project like we did, like the version 2. And that's possible, in my opinion. I mean, like, in a way, the silos also were a very good solution for us that time. If you would go for the ShapeUp, you can you could define like what you want to do and maybe add there some creativity. But in reality, if I think about it, then maybe the ShapeUp would be not ideal, because it will be look like longer scrums basically. So So at the moment, if you realize, because the version 2, how we build is like there was a separate branch, separate basically URL where everything lived. The customers were running on the version 1, and then you build the version 2 on the side. And basically in that case, I would stay with Scrum, or maybe even go for something like a Kanban. I would be thinking more about like how to break the silos, that it doesn't create that we have a team responsible for only parts, but still from the point of the view of like creating the rewrite to version 2, I think like wouldn't go probably for the ShapeUp, to be honest, when I think about it. But that's really like now thinking loudly. And I guess that's all the questions.
Thank you everyone for coming.